It's incredibly sad that Kanye West has gone on an anti-Semitic rant. It's incredibly sad that Kanye West now has officially, in his words, gone after Jewish people, right? And I'm going to explain, aside from what I said earlier, that it's problematic to keep perpetuating these stereotypes because there is a deep fear in the Jewish community about atrocities happening again in the same way that they've happened before, which it's up to us, to everybody else around, to make sure that that doesn't happen via voting. But it's also doubly sad that there has been a rich history of progressive Jews in America. So much so that it is heavily intertwined and interwoven with the civil rights movement in America. This is something that a lot of people don't know because of the fact that we tend to think about the groups of people in this country as monolithic figures, as monolithic structures. We tend to think about the black struggle as just the black struggle, and we only tend to think about black people in the black struggle. We think about like the LGBTQ struggle, and we only think about the LGBTQ struggle or people in that that fit into that as part of that struggle. We don't tend to think about the allies that help in that struggle. And it's quite tragic. I wish that schools did a better job of doing that, because where in schools you only get to hear about like the Holocaust and things like that, and you don't get the nuances, you don't, in the civil rights movement, you only get to talk about very emblematic and symbolic figures like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and, you know, people like that. You don't get to see or read about or talk about the personalities and the figures that helped along the way, be it black or white. And in the civil rights movement, there has been a rich tradition of white allies that have not only funded a huge part of that movement, but walked side by side with people like Martin Luther King. And a lot of people don't like acknowledging that. So much so that without that white help, without those allies, the civil rights movement would have been dead in its tracks. It wouldn't have picked up steam. Okay? You have to understand that in the civil rights movement, as a white person, the amount of hate and vitriol that you would be getting standing side by side of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was a socialist in the South. Imagine being a white person having to stand next to him. Looking back on it now, incredibly courageous and noble thing to do. But in the moment, the amount of hate that would come out of that, there has never been a fight for white supremacy without pushback or a counter fight towards white supremacy by white people. It is ahistoric to think about it that way. Now, I do understand that systemically, there's a huge responsibility that society itself has to take. White people, the history of America, I understand that. But it will also be ahistoric if we didn't talk about that. Did you know that a couple months before Rosa Parks decided to sit in the front of the bus, she was at the Highlander Center learning from Miles Horton. Miles Horton was a white man that was deeply intertwined with the civil rights movement. So much so that Rosa Parks was under his tutelage to some degree. Martin Luther King was under his tutelage to some degree. They were all there. You can't deny that. That is a factual information. Other people like Ann Braden. It's doubly sad because Kanye West comes from the music industry. He's an artist first, and the arts is where the breakdown of racism has always begun, right? The first crossing of the line at a Chuck Berry concert. White artists being in black bands. People like Biggs Burdettebeck, musician for Louis Armstrong. Those kinds of people like Stevie Ray Vaughan, right? Deeply intertwined with black art and black music, the black struggle. You're going to sit there and tell them that there's no such thing as racism? It's insane. Now, back to the Jewish point. Did you know Henry Moskowitz joined W.E.B. Du Bois? Du Bois, one of my intellectual heroes. They joined together with other civil rights leaders to found the NAACP. Arne Aronson, And A. Philip Randolph founded the Leadership Conference. Huge Jewish figures in the civil rights movement. From 1910 to 1940, more than 2,000 primary and secondary schools and 20 black colleges, including Howard, Dillard, and Fisk universities. They were established in whole or in part by contributions from Jewish philanthropist Julius Rosenwald. At the height of all of those schools, 40% of black people in the South were educated by some of these schools. Schools that would not exist without the philanthropy of a Jewish man. These are direct actions by Jewish people to help the black struggle. It's sad that Kanye doesn't even know his own history, his own people's history in the civil rights movement. Aside from the anti-Semitism and aside from perpetuating politically what dehumanizing language, there is a rich history between civil rights leaders, the civil rights movement, and Jewish people. And for him not to even understand that, for him not to know that history is shameful. Shameful. If he knew that, I doubt that he would be throwing Jewish people under the bus. During the civil rights movement, Jewish activists represented a disproportionate number of white people involved in the struggle. Jews made up of half of young people who participated in the Mississippi Freedom Summer. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel walked alongside Martin Luther King in Selma. One of my other intellectual heroes, Dr. Cornel West, praises the rabbi so much in his work. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were drafted in the conference room of Religious Action Center to reform Judaism. The significance of that alone. This is Jewish people that were proud of the fact that they were helping black people. It's a big fucking deal. Because you can't get progress without having an allyship. If you are a minority group, by definition, you cannot see progress without the help of people in the majority. The Jewish community to this day continues to support civil rights laws addressing persistent discrimination in voting, housing, and employment against not only women and people of color, but also the LGBTQ community and the disabled community. I don't get it. It's doubly sad for Kanye West to say these things when the Jewish community, sure, maybe some people assimilated in the South quite easily, right? For the lack of struggle, but there has been a rich tradition of Jewish people being allies to the black struggle. And again, it's sad that Kanye West doesn't even know his own people's history. Triply sad that his mother was an educator and his father a photographer, primarily photographing what I think is the civil rights movement. It's sad. It's sad that somebody can fall that far from grace. Kanye West is despicable for the things that he's saying. He's been despicable for a very long time, but he is an example of somebody that does not want to research history, that does not want to actually know details and nuances of said history. This is a man that only wants to be enabled. This is a man that believes that he needs to be one of the pillars of success in American culture. He believes that his face should be the face that represents success, that his face needs to be the face that represents progress, that his face needs to be the face that represents genius, and we played a part in that for calling him a genius when he wasn't. He's never been a genius. He's been a talented music producer. He's been a very creative music producer. He's made some great songs, but that's it. That's it. He's had aspirations for fashion, and maybe he's got a little bit of a knack for that also, but even then, the Yeezy brand is shit. It's hideous. It's hideous, and I push back on it because a lot of people nowadays will spend $300, $400 on Yeezy products. when he himself said that he wanted Yeezy brand to be part of to be for black people. He could have easily, instead of trying to partner with Louis Vuitton or trying to partner with all these people or trying to make high art, he could have gone directly to inner city communities and impacted people's lives there. He could have provided uniforms. He could have gone. I respect Shaq more for having his shoes at Payless than Kanye West for being with Adidas and releasing whatever shoe is coming out and only releasing a limited amount so that the prices can go up. It's sad. There are black people graduating from historically black universities every single year. These are going to be black lawyers. These are going to be black engineers. These are going to be black professionals all over the country. His Yeezy brand line could have started business clothes. Instead, he's parading around Paris or Cannes or wherever the hell he's at on a runway with clothes that are all torn up, that look all dingy. For what? For a fashion revolution? For some sort of dystopian fashion revolution? You get the fuck out of here. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And it's because of that I've never bought it. It's been a sham from the very beginning. It's sad. It's very sad. And I know that this is a deep critique of Kanye West, and I'm a nobody. But what I am is an ex-fan. I'm a person that used to listen to Kanye West's music and think, man, I relate to this. All Falls Down was my shit. I loved it. But to watch him fall from grace that much, it's just sad. I don't feel sorry for him. He dug his own grave. But it is very, very sad. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form blaming it on mental illness. I do think that he's mentally ill. And I do think that his bipolar disorder needs to get checked. And I do think he needs to be on better medication. But I don't think that his mental illness is what is the reason that it makes him an anti-Semite, is the reason he's perpetuating Jewish stereotypes, is the reason that he's going on anti-Semitic rants. I don't think that that's why. I think him being ignorant and him not having an education, a good education, not being able to discern reality, facts from some YouTube dark hole that he's in, is the reason that he's spewing out anti-Semitic things. I think his lack of education and his ignorance is the reason why he's there. And he won't ever get down from his high horse until he realizes what it's really like to be an intellectual and reads about the culture and the struggle of his people. And if people keep giving him a platform to say all the things that he wants to say, he's going to continue to be mad. He's going to continue to feel like he's getting silenced. And he's going to keep doubling down on hating more and more people because he's not getting his way. It is the biggest, shy of Donald Trump, it is the biggest temper tantrum that we